Okay. Happy Wednesday to the world. Thank you for joining us here. My name is Mark Zavar. I'm the Global Marketing Communications Manager here at Magstim and our parent company, Welkeny. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. We are going to get started. We have a lot to share. And before we get moving on our demonstration of our transcranial magnetic stimulation, I want to turn it over to our CEO, Ronnie Stolocampo, for a brief introduction before we get into this.
Hi, everybody. Glad you could join us today. And thank you for attending. I think it's going to be a fun demo for you with Joe Law. Thanks for joining us. We're excited to share this demonstration of the Horizon 3.0 Stimguide Pro. This Magstim system is at work in clinics, hospitals, and research labs, providing integrated, navigated TMS. There's a wide range of treatment protocols and options with the system, and all of our focus is on improving patient outcomes. Today, Joe's going to provide an overview of the basic steps you need to perform a patient treatment and demonstrate just how easy our navigated system can be. We also want to encourage anyone with questions to email marketing@magstim.com, and someone from our team will get back to you directly. I'm excited to now introduce Joe Law, who heads up our US service team. Joe and his team have done a tremendous job responding to service and support requests and creating virtual demonstrations that show people how to operate this system in real time. But first, our lawyers would like me to remind you that this webinar provides a general demonstration of Magstim technology. It is intended for informational purposes only. It does not cover all aspects of product operation, protocols, or treatment guidelines. The content presented here may not be applicable to your specific treatments. For detailed instructions, approved usage, safety protocols, and regulatory clearances, please refer to the official product user guides and documentation provided by Magstim. Use of the technology should always be conducted in accordance with these materials. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Joe Law. Remember, please post your questions in the chat or email them to marketing@magstim.com, and we'll get right back to you. Joe, take it away.
Thank you, Ronnie. Good morning, all. Thank you for joining. Quick introduction. My name is Joe. I am the lead engineer for the US, and I also head the service department in the US. I've worked for Magstim for 13 years, and thank you very much for joining. So what I'd like to do, I'll quickly do a quick overview of the system, the hardware itself, and then we'll actually jump into a workflow and go through a full MDD workflow. So to start with the overview, we'll start the main portion of the system here. This actually provides the energy to the coil to make the magnetic field, along with our customized PC with our EMG inputs. I'll speak a bit more about that during the mapping stage. This is our clinical treatment chair, the Magstim chair, fully remote, fully motorized. This here is our treatment coil. Something important about the treatment coil with Magstim, you only need one treatment coil. So regardless of what indication you are doing, whether that's MDD, OCD, etc., you only need the one treatment coil. There is no need to purchase additional coils. Whilst I'm on that topic, we do also provide you with a mapping coil, purely for the mapping coil process. The thing I like about this is it's fully remote. So you can change intensities, arm the system, fire the system, all from the patient. You never have to leave the patient's side and interact with the screen because you can control it with your thumb from the actual mapping coil itself. You'll see behind me here, this is our infrared tracking camera that is used for the navigation process. The camera is going to look for certain reflective spheres on certain tracking devices, and I'll show you how that works a bit more when we actually get into the treatment itself. So what I'll do now is I'm going to switch you to the screen mode so you can see what I see on the screen. And then I'll also, in a minute, share the actual treatment camera as well. So when you first turn on your device, you'll be greeted with a login screen. The beauty of this is everybody that is going to use the device will have their own unique login. What this allows the admins and people that oversee the TMS department, they can see exactly what that person has done on their login. So there's a full overview of exactly what your users are doing. So I've already put my credentials in. I'm going to sign in. When you first sign on to the device, it is going to give you an overview of all of your active patients. So admittedly, this is just some test data here, but this would usually be your active patients that are currently undergoing the TMS program. So what I'm going to do is let's enter a new patient and start the workflow. So when a patient first comes in, we're going to want to enter some patient details. So I'm just going to make up some details here. The only thing that needs to be unique here is the patient ID. What a lot of the clinics will be doing will match this to their EHR system. It makes it much easier when it comes to the admin side of things. So I've set up a new patient profile. We can see on the left-hand side the general patient details. This portion in the middle, the treatment plan summary, is what you're going to be interested in most of the time. This is going to tell you what their current treatment plan is, where they are in their treatment, who treated them last, etc. These three buttons down here will always be your workflow. So the first button will be new RMT determination, which is the mapping process to determine, the dosage needed for that patient and certain scalp landmarks. Once you've done that, we can then assign a treatment plan to that patient or build a treatment plan for that patient, and finally run treatment. You can see that these two buttons at the bottom are grayed out. The reason for that is you have to do the workflow in order. So we have to do a mapping first before we can continue. Up here, we have a few more tabs. So you've got RMT history, treatment plan, and treatment history. So this captures all data for this patient. So any previous mappings that are done, any previous treatments that are done, are all saved up there for full traceability on that patient. So let's start a new MT determination. It'll always ask you to confirm the date of birth. We do this purposely to make sure that you're in the right patient profile. You should verbally check with the patient the date of birth. If you enter it and it's correct, it'll allow you in. If it's incorrect, you know you're in the wrong profile and need to go back and find the correct profile. So it's going to take us through to something called the anatomical landmarks now. So with this system, you don't need the traditional method of caps. So many of you may be familiar with these fabric caps that are traditionally used for TMS and still used to this day. There's a couple of challenges with the caps. How do you place this on a patient's head in exactly the same place consistently 36 times in a row? It is very difficult. And then also, the idea is you put fabric, with a fabric cap, you place markers on there, and that's where you place your coilers on those marks. Well, once you place the coil over those marks, it's difficult to see if that mark still remains in the same location of the coil. So these are the kind of things we tried combating when designing this system and the navigation system. So this system does not require caps. You do not need caps at all. So the way we do this, you stick a reusable head reference on the patient's forehead. You then have to calibrate the system to tell the system where the patient's head is in relation to that anatomical landmark. So we're going to do the nasion, then the right tragus, then the left tragus, and then the top of the head, which we call CZ. So I've already placed this anatomical landmark, the head reference on this patient's head, as you can see on the other video. So what I'm going to do is now register those anatomical landmarks. So we recently developed a new pointer tool. It's now Bluetooth enabled, so you don't have to actually interact with the screen at all. You can do it all from the patient's head. So I'm going to place the pointer on the nasion. Now the left ear, or the left tragus, or preauricular, then the right ear, and then a CZ. So what you can see is now I've registered those anatomical landmarks. You can see, as I move the tracker next to the patient's head, you can see it in real time on the screen. So in the bottom left here, you can see manage landmarks. I want to stress that this system does not require any MRI or any fMRI function. You don't need that, but we do also give you the option, if you have had an MRI or an fMRI, you can transpose those coordinates into XYZs. You can click on manage landmarks and add the XYZ location. The system will then guide you to where that location is on the patient's head. Again, not needed, but the option's there if you'd like to do that. So I'm going to click next on the bottom here to move forward to the mapping stage. I won't go into too much detail here, but it's asking me what my targeting type is. So if I wanted to say do OCD or even some off-label protocols, you can change the targeting type in this menu. For the sake of this demo, I'm just going to go next. This middle portion here is going to capture the pulses. I'm going to ignore this for a second and make this model head on the right-hand side a little bit larger. So you can see the system is guiding us to a rough estimate of the C3. It'll never be exact because everybody's C3 is slightly different. on the location of the head. So it's giving us a guide of where the C3 will roughly be. So at this point, you then get your coil and start searching for the C3. So I'd like to show you how the navigation system benefits us during the mapping stage. So I'm going to deliver 3 pulses in 3 different locations. Bring that previous screen back. We can see each pulse has been captured on the screen. So traditionally, when using a cap, if you wanted to say go back to exactly where the coil was when I delivered my first pulse, because I had the best response in that location, you'd never know where your coil was on that first pulse when you delivered it. With this system, what you can do is, if I click on pulse 3, the system is going to show us exactly where the coil is when I delivered my third pulse. If I want to go back to the first pulse, I just click on that. You see the model move. It's now showing me where my coil was when I delivered my first pulse. So that's all I need to do is marry up those 2 ghost icons, and now I'm back in exactly the same location as I was when I delivered my first pulse. So this is really helpful and really speeds up the mapping process. With the Magstim system, I'd like to see a mapping done within 5 to 10 minutes and no more, especially once you're familiar with the system and how it works. It shouldn't take more than 10 minutes. So I'd like to discuss this waveform down the bottom. Admittedly, it's flat at the minute, but this is our EMG feature. So what that allows us to do is look for electric signals from the muscle of what motor response we're looking for. So traditionally, the way TMS is done is when we're doing MDD, we're looking to elicit a response in the patient's thumb, and we would visually look for this. What we can do on this system is plug in some disposable electrodes, EMGs, plug them into the front of the system. You can stick these EMGs to the patient's thumb or whatever motor response you're looking for, and not only will you get a visual response, but you will also then see a nice sine wave on that waveform when you elicit a response and we get muscle signals. A benefit to that is what we've noticed is even when the thumb stops twitching, and that would usually be the dosage or the MT used to that patient, the EMG is still picking up muscle response, which allows you to bring that MT even further down, which allows for patient comfort. If you haven't got to treat the patient with such high dosage, it's going to be a lot more comfortable to do. So, for the sake of this demo, I'm not going to get a response out of my mannequin head today. So what we're going to have to do is I will deliver a pulse on what we'll say is the perfect C3 and register that. So the way we do that is this is the last pulse I did. Let's say, for example, the intensity was 30% and the location is correct. We can click register here to register that C3 location on this patient's profile. So if I click next, usually now with the traditional method of using the caps, you would now have to take a few different measurements, for example, tragus to tragus, inion to nasion, and a circumference measurement, and find out the treatment location. With this system, it'll do those measurements for you. We've already told the system anatomical landmarks, and now we've told it where the C3 is, so it can tell us where the treatment target is. And that's what that yellow cylinder you're seeing on the screen. It's telling us where the treatment target is. Why is it a yellow cylinder? That's the tolerance. So currently I'm set at a 5mm tolerance, so I have a 5mm cylinder. You can customize that between 1mm and 10mm. If you want to set it within 1mm, that yellow cylinder is going to be a lot smaller. So what it wants us to do, and it's going to guide us to deliver a pulse on the treatment target. So what you notice is when I place the coil back on the head, that yellow cylinder remains yellow. Once I go within tolerance of that yellow cylinder, it'll go green to tell me I'm now able to treat in that location. So what it wants me to do is deliver a pulse. So I just need to make sure that my coil is tangential to the head and deliver a pulse. And we can see that's now been recorded on the right-hand side. So the way this system is going to work, for the next 36 treatments, this system is going to guide you to place our treatment coil in not only that exact location you're seeing on the screen, but that exact orientation. So what I'm going to do is click register on the right-hand side to register this and save that exact location to the patient's profile. This will allow me to select this location in the treatment plan, which you'll see in a minute. So I'll press save and close on that. And that is the mapping portion done. Again, this should only take 5-10 minutes per patient. So let's now, before we start running a treatment, we need to develop a treatment plan. So if we click on new treatment plan, there's a couple of options here. If I get rid of this screen so you can see a bit better, there's a couple of options. You've got combined treatments or individual treatments. So combined treatments is a nice feature if you've got a patient that maybe is doing multiple indications. Maybe you've got a patient you want to do MDD and OCD. you can set them up with a combined treatment plan. For the sake of the demo, we're just going to do an individual treatment today. So I'll click the drop down. This will display some default protocols in here. So we can see the theta-based ITBS protocol. We can see the original MDD 37-minute protocol. These are all defaulted on the system. If there's something you want to use that's maybe off-label or for research purposes, you can use the plus symbol in the top right here. If you click on that, it'll allow you to add your own complete custom protocol and add it to your default list for future use. For the sake of this demo, I'm just going to select ITBS, which is the 3-minute protocol. So I've selected ITBS theta-based, but now it wants to know, where do you want to treat the patient with theta-based? Well, we just saved that at the very end of our mapping process. And that's what you can see here is the target with the date and time that it was done. I'll select that. It wants a plan name. You can name it whatever you like. I like to name it what the indication is, so I'm going to name it MDD. It'll always default to 36 total number of treatments because that is clinical standard, but you can adjust that as and when you want. I'm going to click check to assign the treatment plan. That is the treatment plan done. Finally, we need to run treatment. So let's click on run treatment. Okay, it's asking me, do I want to reuse the existing landmark? So what this is asking me is, has the patient's head reference on their head moved in relation to the last time I did the anatomical landmarks? So for example, if the patient took this off or comes back in tomorrow, you're never going to stick this back in exactly the same location or orientation. So you would need to do these anatomical landmarks again that we did at the start. My patient here has not moved the head reference in relation to their head, so I can use existing. Again, confirm date of birth to make sure you're in the right profile. And now it's going to start to take us to the treatment screen. So we can see at the top, it says, please switch to the treatment call. So it knows that the mapping call is plugged in. So just show you quickly how we do that. Very simple. Push back the wings on the front of the system, pull the mapping coil out, and plug the treatment coil in. Snap the wings back on. The system will then register that and allow you to get rid of the message at the top. So very similar screen again. You can see this yellow cylinder on the head. That's going to guide us to place the treatment coil in the right location. And once we do that, this will go green to tell me I'm in the right location. But we need a bit better than that during the treatment. We actually need the orientation as well. So this gimbal down here is going to guide us with regards to the tilt, rotation, and the yaw. So the way that works is this black bat icon needs to be within this red line, and that's within tolerance. It'll be a bit easier if I show you, which I will in a minute. So once this is green, it'll be within the right location. Once this is green, it'll be in the right orientation. We'll then have a full green box around the outside of the system to tell us all parameters are within tolerance and you're able to treat. So if I just show you that quickly, I'll grab my treatment coil. And what you'll notice is as I move this coil around, you can see the orientation and the coil on the screen moving. So even though I'm nowhere near the head at the moment, I can probably get the orientation correct. So you can see here, that is the ideal location for the orientation on the gimbal. If I rotate my coil, you'll notice the black bat wings move, they rotate. I can get them back in and it goes green. If I tilt it, we see the ball move. If I tilt it forward. So every parameter is looked at with regards to the coil. So now I've got my orientation correct. I just need to place the coil in the right location, which is on that yellow cylinder. So if I take the coil to the patient's head and place it on that location, you notice the entire thing goes green. Again, if I move the coil out the way, I lose that that location. I can bring it back in and I'm back in within tolerance. So at this stage, we would lock the coil up in position, let go of the coil, and now it still remains green, so I'm able to treat. That's telling me all parameters are within tolerance. So what I can do now is in the bottom left, I can press the orange button. That'll arm the system. It'll take me through to the control screen. What this allows you to do is change the intensity. So you can always lower the intensity. This is quite important when a patient is having TMS for the first time. You may not want to go straight in with full dosage. You might want to slowly bring them up and get used to the TMS before beginning the treatments. So now I've done that, I'm going to click on the green button, which allows me to start the treatment. You can see that the pulses start to lower and the time remaining starts to lower. That's all you would need to do is toggle back to the navigation view and make sure that the parameters stay within green. So the traditional method of using a cap Can be difficult to know if the coil stays in the right place, especially if it's a long treatment, say 18 minutes. With the navigation system, I'm going to simulate the patient moving by just pushing the mannequin's head. We've noticed that we've lost the location. It's telling us at the top to suspend the treatment and reposition the coil. Every pulse that is being delivered now and before is being recorded to my profile. So there's full traceability here. So what I'm going to do is press the red button at the bottom to pause the treatment. At this point, you would place the coil back in the right location to get everything green again. Admittedly, I'm going to let go of the head and it'll probably fall back into the right place. This wouldn't usually happen with a patient. Once you've placed the coil back in the correct location, you can get rid of the message and then resume the treatment. So at this point, you just make sure all the parameters stay within green. That's making sure that every pulse is being delivered on target. Again, every pulse, whether it's on target or off target, is being recorded to my profile. The beauty of this is full traceability. So previously, with the CAP method, there was no way unless you were present at the treatment to know exactly how well that treatment went. The beauty of this system, if you're admin of the system or you head the TMS department, even if you're not in the clinic, you can log on remotely on a laptop or desktop and see exactly how well your treatments went. Current treatments and previous treatments. There's full traceability and you can see exactly how they've gone. With the cloud-based system, again, on a desktop or laptop, we also give you analytical software. It's kind of limitless, but to kind of give you an idea of how it works, the analytical software is very nice because, say, for example, you had a small portion of patients that weren't responding well to treatment. The software will show you if there's any correlation with maybe one treater or technician that isn't performing as well as the others. So the analytics really nice. It's kind of limitless, but that gives you an idea of how it works. So what I'd like to do is we've got 1 minute of treatment left. So what I'm going to do, extreme admittedly, but I'm going to move the coil away from the patient's head. So we lose the location, but I'm also going to lose the orientation. What I'd like to do is kind of simulate a poor treatment and how that records to the system. At the end of this treatment, it will give me a treatment score. And again, that'll be saved to my profile. So extreme, but it'll show you exactly how it works. So we've got 40 seconds left. We'll just allow that to finish by missing those last minutes worth of pulses. Again, with the system being cloud-based, something really nice that we're able to do is any new features or functions, we can push those updates out to you remotely. So you would just come into the office one day or the clinic, turn the system on, it will give you an update and tell you exactly what the update was and if you want them for your system. This was something we did with the previous model of this. When it was released, we didn't have the clearance for OCD treatment. I believe it was 6-7 months later, we were then cleared. So we then pushed that indication and the workflow out to all of the systems out there that now could have that treatment. Okay, so the treatment is finished. This now gives me a treatment score window. So we can see here that I had a treatment score of 60%. It gives me a breakdown as to why my treatment was 60%. Was it my distance, my rotation, my tilt, my contact, or a combination of all four? And it's telling me here that the patient missed 240 pulses. So 240 of those pulses were not delivered to the patient's treatment target. So what I really like about this system is down the bottom here, it allows me to dial up in multiples of the train to a total of the missed pulses. So I can't go any more than what was missed. It then allows me to check that, go back into the treatment screen and try to deliver those 240 pulses that were not delivered on target. So the beauty of that is we're just trying to make sure that the patient gets all of their treatment necessary. So they missed 240. Let's try attempt to deliver those 240 again. Admittedly, it's a one-time per treatment thing. You can't keep trying over and over again. You have one chance at the end to deliver any missed pulses. So that would be the full workflow. Once you've then delivered those missed pulses, or if you had 100% score, that would obviously be the end of the treatment. The patient is free to leave until they come back in tomorrow to just go over the treatment portion. The mapping portion and the building a treatment plan is only generally done once, twice per patient. The run treatment would be done 36 times. That would be the full workflow. So a couple of other things I just want to highlight about the system before I pass you back to Ronnie is the system is covered by a 2 years manufacturer's warranty. So that covers everything. That's repairs, replacements, if we need to visit the clinic, anything like that, there is no cost to the customer during the manufacturer's warranty. There's also an option to add extended warranty after this period. And then lastly, the system is included with installation. So one of our clinical specialists will come install the system at your clinic, and then you'll have 2 days clinical training with our clinical specialist, just to make sure you're fully up and running and know how the system works. We don't generally leave there until you're fully satisfied and happy how the system works. But that will be the full workflow. So thank you very much for joining me today. I'm going to pass you back to Ronnie and Mark.
Thank you so much, Joe, for a great demonstration of the system and everything that's happening therein. We have had a few questions that have come in, so I will read them forthwithly, and hopefully you can answer them. I think you can, Joe. Something tells me you're going to be good at this. So, okay. First question is, can you share more about MRI? You mentioned this before, and is this system, does it require an MRI?
Yeah, great question. So note, the system does not require MRI. If I'm honest, the majority of our clinics out there currently are not using the MRI function, but I think it's something that might pick up. But we give you that option. So again, you don't need an MRI, you don't need an fMRI, anything like that. So, but we do give you the option to add XYZ coordinates into the system that have been transposed from an MRI or an fMRI if you want. But again, it is not needed for this system, no.
And now, interestingly, we're seeing research studies and a number of papers published that have shown that non-fMRI navigation is not inferior to fMRI navigation. So it saves your patients a lot of cost from paying for the fMRI or the MRI, and it saves you a lot of time if you want to get started treating a patient, not waiting for them to get an MRI scheduled.
Great. Thank you, Ronnie. Joe, I have another question. In terms of performing a treatment protocol, how easy is it for different clinicians of various heights to adjust the coil arm, as it were? Can you show us how that would work?
Great question. Yep. So the arm is fully adjustable. So if you unlock the coil, you'll notice, and I hope you can see this okay, but there's a boom that's upright on the system. You can unlock this boom, and you can actually take the coil all the way down here as low as you want. So for your even shorter patients or shorter technicians or treaters, and then obviously for your higher, you can bring it all the way up here. So there is an adjustment there. The chair is also adjustable. So if you've got a patient you need to bring up higher or take them lower, the chair is fully motorized. You can bring the height of the chair up and down as well. So there's multiple things here you can do to kind of accommodate those people.
Fantastic. We have a few more that have come in. What does it mean to be, I'm reading this here, what does it mean to be network capable or provide remote patient monitoring?
Sorry, say that again.
So what does it mean to be network capable or provide remote patient monitoring?
Sure. So what you can do is, again, we have something called PDM and analytics. So you can use the system to input data, export data. That's not a problem, the system itself. But we also give you cloud-based access. So you don't have to be at the system to access this data. So as long as you've got credentials to log into this system, you can open up a desktop or laptop web browser. You can go onto PDM, Magstim Connect, and you can log in using your credentials. That'll give you access to this and more. So you'll be able to see all patients' treatment, all traceability, how they've went. Again, with the analytical system as well, you can see if there's any correlation between things. So you have full access. You don't have to be in the clinic to use this. You can do it fully remote. So I hope that answers the question.
One of the nice things about it too, Joe, don't you think it's great that if you want to be network enabled, you can be? If you're in a hospital, facility, a university where your IT department is saying, we don't want any more connected devices, you don't have to be network compatible or network enabled.
Yeah, that's great. Actually, that's a great point. We can have this offline or online. We can cater to you. So I mean, if you do want an offline variant, that's not a problem. We can slightly amend the software during installation, and it can be an offline model.
Thank you, Joe. Another one has come in. Do the coils overheat when used repeatedly for acute weekday treatment delivery?
Great question. So no, they don't. So the way our system works, and we did a lot during the design and development here, doing different variations of coils and kind of playing them off against each other. The air-cooled coil wins every time. So the way this system works is there's two fans on either side, and they work on an algorithm. So when you first turn the system on and you're just doing a standard protocol, they're very much on like a standby kind of spin. I mean, I don't even think you can hear them at the minute because they are quite quiet. So the way they work is an algorithm. The more you run that system, and if that coil does heat up, it'll make sure it doesn't overheat by the fans going quicker. So the hotter it gets, it wants to make sure that your treatment is not interrupted. So those fans will spin as fast as they need to make sure that coil is cooled. The beauty of that is as well, is it's very serviceable. So say, for example, you want to purchase a new coil or you want servicing on a coil, the user can actually swap this out themselves. Obviously with, say, for example, liquid-cooled coil, it becomes very difficult to service. There's liquid in the coil, there's kind of toxic liquids, etc. And with this system, you can swap this coil out within a matter of a minute. So very serviceable as well.
Joe, do the air film coils or the air-cooled coils require annual maintenance like some of the liquid-cooled?
No, so there's no maintenance needed on this coil. We have something called EPV, which is essentially a shot counter. So the coils standardly have a 5-year lifetime, or one of the highest shot counters on the market, which is 40 million shots. And the way the system works is 5 years, after 5 years or 40 million hit, the system will tell you it needs maintenance or service. If you haven't used your full shot counter and you get to the 5-year limit, we do offer a 2-year extension. So the way that works is you send the coil backs after 5 years. We will do a full safety test on it to make sure that they're safe. We will then add additional 2 years to those coils to give you a full lifetime of 7 years on those coils. So very little maintenance on this system.
Great. Another one here, Joe. I think we still have time. The note is about regulating and recognizing the thumb and hand movements. I believe what they're referring to is using the EMG protocol. Joe, can you share a little bit about how EMG works in order to get the MT?
Sure. So traditionally, again, the way, and I'm just going to talk about MDD for the sake of this. Traditionally, the way it works is when you stimulate that motor response during MDD, you're looking for the right hand to twitch, the right thumb to twitch. So traditionally, you'd visually look for that thumb twitch to elicit a response. You would then keep bringing the MT percentage down, the intensity of the magnetic field further down and down until you could barely see a thumb twitch anymore. And that's kind of around about where the dose would be for that patient. What you can also do is, again, plug in some EMG electrodes into the front of this system, stick those EMG electrodes to the patient's thumb, and what that'll do is pick up any muscle signals within that patient's thumb. So not only will you get a visual response, but any muscle response will get sent back through the electrode and will show up as a sine wave on your waveform. If there's no muscle response, the waveform will be flat. If there is a response, you'll see, again, a nice sine wave on the screen. You can use them in tandem, that's not a problem. And then what you can do is, what we've noticed is even when the thumb stops twitching visually, you can still pick up muscle response with the EMG. So you may not see a thumb movement, but the EMG will pick it up, which allows you to keep bringing that intensity further down.
Great. Thank you so much, Joe, for that answer. What does a treatment program or protocol for OCD look like, and how is that set up in the system?
Sure. Great question. So let me share my screen here because the OCD protocol is actually defaulted in our system. So if you go on the left-hand side from the main screen, you can see treatments. So these are templates already set up. So these first 4 here are actually the default ones. The ones below are ones I've set up for testing. So these first 4 will actually be defaulted on your system when you purchase it. You can see here OCD is already set up. So you can see it's an 18-minute 20 treatment. If I click on it, it'll actually give you a little bit more detail again. but that is the OCD parameter that you see on the screen there. So again, defaulted to the system. That's not something you have to input. We actually provide you that by standard.
Great. Tell me more about you, Joe. How long have you been at Magstim? And I know, because I know you, you've been here for a while, Joe.
Great question. Yeah, so I've actually been with Magstim now, I just believe, over 13 years. So the Magstim family for 13 years. Don't be fooled by the accent. I am based here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So I originally started with Magstim back in the UK. That is our headquarters where we manufacture and develop all of our equipment. So the entire equipment is developed by Magstim. There's no third party here. So I started my Magstim journey there doing engineering and helping with manufacturing and servicing. And then in 2019, I then started to move to the US and start my US service and engineering career for Magstim.
Fantastic. Thank you, Joe. This one just in. Can you show again? Sorry, I'm reading this out live. We're live. Can you show again how to input a protocol that is not defaulted into the system? So I think people are looking for is how to customize their treatment protocol. Can you show that on the screen?
Problem. So you have a couple of options here. If you want, what I'll do is I'll show you, they're kind of both the same method. So if you want to set it, maybe you want to set one up on the fly, you forgot to add it to your default list, and you currently have your patient's treatment profile open, you can do it from that stage. Or if you know you're going to be using it in the future, what you can do here, let me go back. So this is the main screen here with your active patients when you first sign in. You can see on the left-hand side it says treatments. If you click on that, it'll bring up all your defaulted treatments here. But what you can do is there is a plus symbol in the top right here. If you want to add a combined treatment, a custom one, you click on the plus symbol in the combined treatment template title. If you want to do an individual treatment template, you click on the one in that title itself. So if I click on the plus, it allows you to add any parameter you want here to make your own custom protocol. So you can see you can change the resting MT percentage, you can change pulses per second, total number of trains, etc. And then you can rename it at the top. That'll allow you to then add it to the default under that name. There's two modes here, so standard. For example, standard is for MDD is the 18-minute and the 37-minute MDD protocol. And then burst, for example, would be theta burst, which is usually a frequency within a frequency. So again, you just need to add the parameters in here, add the title. When you press the check mark, that will then be listed down here for you to use. Again, you can also do this when you go into the patient's treatment plan. The same screen comes up and allows you to click the plus to add it then. So just because you haven't added it beforehand, you can still do it when you're in your patient's treatment plan as well.
Joe, if I'm a researcher and I'm doing a clinical trial and I think I have a better accelerated protocol that I want to test in this clinical trial. Can I put that accelerated protocol in as an individual?
Great question. Great question. So yeah, the same again, you've got the option. You can either go ahead and click the plus to just add a modified version or an adjusted version if you want to save both. What you can also do is you could click on one of your treatment defaulted treatments. You can then adjust your current treatments that are already set up by default. So just because you've added it, it doesn't mean you can't make adjustments after the fact. Or again, you can even remove it. If you feel like you put it in error or it's something you're not going to use in the future, you can remove the treatment plan, the treatment that's been put in place. So yeah, you can do that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Hey, Joe, there's a question about how long does it typically take to service a system? And this is what you do. So I'll let you answer that.
Great question. So there's a couple of things we can do. We do a preventative maintenance service. It's not something that's required, but we understand some clinics have processes that need sign-off from the manufacturer. So we do have a preventative maintenance service available for our clinics. That means somebody will come out and they will do a visual and functional inspection on the system. That can usually take around an hour and a half, but it is done by a Magstim rep. And then if, for example, let's say, for example, you want to send the call back after, let's say, 5 years to do a safety test, we can usually turn that around within a couple of days. Again, the beauty of the system is the way we've designed it is everything is very modular. And we've done that purposely. Say, for example, God forbid something does go wrong, and we find out, for example, it's this top unit, for example, we can ship you that overnight. So if you go down one day, we can ship you the modular unit overnight. It'll be with you 10:30 the next morning. It's very much plug and play. So you just swap the units out and you're back up and running within 24 hours.
If I have a problem with my system, Joe, and I call you, can you remotely diagnose what the problem is?
I can indeed. So with this system, it is in the back end, it is Windows based, so we can remote in. For regulation purposes, we obviously need approval from you, and you would actually have to provide us a generated password which changes constantly, so we can't get in the system without your approval. But if you give us those credentials, we can log in, we can check the logs and see how the system is done over time. We can do firmware updates. We can even guide you whilst you're doing certain protocols, for example. So yeah, fully remote, but we do need authorization from the user, just to make sure your system is secure and based with your clinic and not us.
Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Joe. I think we have time. Can you change the total number of sessions for a specific protocol?
Can you change the total number of sessions for a protocol?
For a specific protocol. So I think what they're asking for is, can they adjust around a specific protocol around that?
Okay, yeah. So sessions, yes, you can do, for example, sessions. If I click on the patient that I was just on before, I think this might answer your question. If not, I'll do both just in case. We can see here we set up sessions of a total of 36 sessions for this patient. If you want to add more or less, you could edit the treatment plan. You will have to set up the treatment again that you were doing. So I've done theta burst and the location, the plan name. And then again, you can change the total number of sessions or treatments. I think that's what they mean by sessions. So here, it'll always default to a clinical standard of 36, but you can change that as and when you want. So if you want to go down to 20 treatments, or maybe you just want to do a trial of 5, you can select the number you want. And then what you'll notice then is that'll then be in the treatment plan kind of tally, if you will. If that's not what they were asking, I think maybe they might have been asking this. If, for example, you've got a protocol, for example, theta burst or the 18-minute, I'm just going to click on one of my custom ones. Oh, sorry, I didn't do that right. Let's go back. Click on one of these. You can change the total number of trains. So I'm not sure what you mean by sessions. Is it the total number of trains or cycles during your session, or the actual full sessions themselves? So to answer the question, it's yes on both questions, as you can do it for the sessions or the cycles or trains per protocol.
Great. Another question. What kind of ongoing fees are involved with operating a Magstim system?
Great question. Something I'm actually very passionate about of my total time here is Magstim is not pay-per-use. So it's something we're strongly against here. It's not a pay-per-use system. We're not subscription-based. For full transparency here, the only disposable items needed for this device are generic EMG, EKG electrodes. So, for example, we don't charge you to use one of these every single time, for example. The way you reuse this is you place EKG, EM electrode stickies, any type of EKG, EMG electrodes. You can then peel off the label, stick that to the patient's head, remove these disposable electrodes, and use some more. So again, generic, there's no ties to us with these EKG electrodes. Again, not pay-per-use, not subscription-based, something I feel very strongly with. So yeah, that's a great question.
Great. How long does it typically take for a first-time TMS practice to get up and running?
So we offer 2 days training. So that comes with the system. So somebody will come and install the system the first day, make sure everything is good, everything is running okay. And then for the next 2 days, we will do a training session with everybody in the clinic. We usually say anybody that's going to get hands-on with the system should be present at the training. If I'm honest, it usually doesn't take 2 days. We take 2 days just to make sure everybody is happy and everybody is confident with the system. But usually we see most people are happy and confident within a day of training.
Great. Tell me more, I'm reading this live. Tell me more about the chair and how the chair is adjusted.
Sure. So great question. So the chair is fully motorized. So we have back here, we have a remote control. And on that, we can do the height adjustment up and down. We can do a back adjustment up and down. We've got a footrest down the bottom for patient comfort. That will also go up and down. And then we can tilt the system, the chair as a whole. So if you don't want to do the back or the foot individual, you can tilt the entire chair backwards itself. A couple of other things you can adjust. So this chair and the system is on wheels. So if you ever need to move the system out the way, or you need to move the adjustment of the patient in the chair, it is on wheels so you can move the chair. We also have the Magstim headrest. So I really like this headrest because it doesn't actually go the entire way up the patient's head, which then makes it very difficult to do mappings, etc. Or even placing the coil on some off-label protocols. It's difficult to get to the patient's head if there's a headrest there. Ours is more kind of like a bottom of the head neck rest. It kind of supports the patient's head like this. It also comes with, if I switch cameras, you can see here, this is a cheek rest. So the way this works is you gently place this against the patient's head. So when you put the coil on the patient's head here, it stops the patient from shying away and moving their head to the right-hand side. So you can use that as a cheek rest or a temple rest. Again, fully adjustable on 3 ball joints.
Fantastic. Another chair question, Joe. Can patients interchange chairs without having to recheck MTs or input the patient's info into the system?
Yeah, great question. So the way this head tracker works is it's only looking at where this is in space. So if you've done the anatomical landmarks correctly, you can move the patient in the chair anywhere you want. So I generally suggest don't do large movements just for error. But I mean, no, you're fine. If you want to move your patient after doing anatomical landmarks, for example, you can do that.
Great. How is the mast released in order for you to rotate it? Are you holding something?
Yeah, apologies. I don't think the camera's picking that up. But if I try do this, you can see here that there's a footrest on the floor. So what that allows me to do is when I press that footrest, there is a magnetic brake in this mast here. Once I press it, it unlocks the boom. Once I let it go, it's now locked. So this will no longer move. The way the arm of the coil moves, it's actually quite clever. There's this, what we call a fisso arm here. So this allows it to move. If I lock this arm here, it doesn't just lock this joint, it locks 3 joints. So it locks here, here, and here, all from this one locking mechanism here. We also, apologies, I'm not sure if you can see this very well. Maybe try switch to the other camera. There is also a fine adjustment tuner here. So if you've got everything pretty much within limits, but you want to do some smaller adjustments, you can unlock this here, and this allows you to do some smaller adjustments on your patient. So that's a fine adjustment. And then the fisso arm itself is the major adjustment.
Great. Another question, how loud is the air-cooled coil, particularly for OCD treatments?
That's a great question. And it's kind of down to the clinic itself. So as long as you stay within our operating means, which is anywhere less or around the 72 Fahrenheit ambient temperature, then the fans usually stay pretty high. If you're going to have, a warm office environment, clinic environment, those fans are going to need to work more to bring more air in to cool the coil down. So as long as you stay within our operating temperatures, that fan should not be loud. The actual clicking of the coil, which is traditional and standard with all TMS devices, should always be louder than that fan. But again, if you've got a hot clinic and you're giving that coil a difficult time to cool down, then it's going to have to be loud. We make sure that that coil does not overheat and interrupt your patient's treatment, which is the #1 priority here. So yeah, making sure that you have within our operating temperatures, you should be fine. The fan should not be loud.
Great. Another question, are we allowed to have a procedure to check/verify the current output from the coil.
Say that again. Sorry.
So are we allowed to have a procedure to check or verify the current output from the coil? I believe what they're referring to is the coil output regulated? And I think I know the answer to that, but
Sure. So yeah, if that's what they're asking, I mean, output with regards to Tesla magnetic field output. The way our system works is there's an abundance of references within this system. So it looks at capacitance, voltage, current, all these kind of measurements, and make sure everything is still within tolerance. If anything steps out of tolerance, the system will display the user straight away. If it's something related to maybe safety, the system is not going to allow you to continue to make sure the system fails in a safe state. If it's something that's kind of minor that the user can still continue working, it'll allow you. It'll probably just, warn you that maintenance is required, for example. But there is no process needed for measuring the output of the coil. If you are concerned about that and that's something you really want to get tested, you can always send this back to our service center and we can measure that for you. But the way the system works is it's not required.
Joe, as a bioengineer, I'm always so excited to talk about coil decay. Do you want to just address our coil decay testing and how our coils work?
Great question. So, and I did some of this testing when I was engineering back in the UK. So there's something called coil decay, pulse decay. So the way that works is Magstim has an energy recovery system. And what happens is when the treatment begins, the first pulse that is delivered to the patient will be the equivalent to the last pulse. So there's other devices out there that suffer with something called pulse decay, meaning every time the pulse is fired during that treatment, you get less and less of a pulse every time because they don't have an energy recovery system like Magstim. So we want to make sure that the first pulse that is delivered to the patient is the equivalent to the last pulse. Again, that's not a common thing for TMS devices, but the Magstim does not suffer with pulse decay.
great.
We started as a research company, and we are definitely still rooted in research.
We have one more question, and I'm going to answer this myself because it's marketing, and it says, what kind of fees and ongoing support is provided by Magstim for marketing? And I can tell you confidently that the Magstim marketing team is here to support your practice growth. There's no fees in providing marketing assets, ongoing. We're actually happy to partner with practices to give them regional SEO and SERP support as well to grow that part of it. We have time for one more question, team. Do you require patients to wear earplugs during each treatment? No mask TMS for that. Joe, do we require earplugs? I think it's part of the.
Yeah, so FDA stipulates that you do require to have earplugs. Admittedly, some patients may refuse it, but the clinics themselves should be offering ear protection to the patients.
Fantastic. With that, I appreciate all your time today, both Joe and Ronnie, for your energy. For everyone attending, thank you for taking time to join us today. If you have questions, email marketing@magstim.com. We will respond quickly, and we appreciate your support in providing great ongoing patient care for people in mental health care, because it's more important than ever. Ronnie, any other closing thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to say a big thank you to you, Mark, and you, Joe, for putting this together, Joe, for your tireless efforts in doing virtual demos. If you're interested in the system and you'd like a one-on-one virtual demonstration with Joe, we can schedule that. We're happy to schedule it. Joe has done over 100 of them. So, and to everybody who joined today, good luck on your journey, clinical or research.
Fantastic.
Thanks.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day, and we look forward to seeing you very soon.